Most people spend years trying to get good at something they could have learned in 20 hours. Let that sink in. 20 hours. Not 20 years. Not 20 months. 20 hours. There is a lie that has been quietly stealing your potential for your entire life. It is the belief that mastery takes an impossibly long time, that if you are not naturally gifted, you are simply not meant for it, that the window to learn has somehow already closed. And because of that lie, millions of people live their entire lives never learning the guitar they always wanted to play, never launching the business they always planned to start, never becoming the person they always imagined they could be. You are not failing because you are slow. You are failing because no one ever taught you how to. Begin. Think about the last time you wanted to learn something new. Maybe it was a new language, a new skill for your career, a craft, a sport. You started strong, watched a few videos, maybe bought a book, and then it got hard. The excitement faded. Progress felt invisible. And somewhere between the beginning and the breakthrough, you stopped. That is not a character flaw. That is what happens when you enter a learning curve without a map. There is a man named Josh Kaufman who decided to challenge everything we think we know about. Learning. He had just become a father. His time had collapsed from wide open to almost nothing. And yet there were skills he desperately wanted to acquire. So instead of mourning the time he didn't have, he asked a different question. What if the way we think about learning is completely wrong? He discovered something that researchers had been documenting for decades, but that the world had quietly ignored. The most frustrating part of learning anything new is not the middle. It is not even the advanced stages. It is the very beginning. The first few hours of any skill are the most uncomfortable, the most discouraging, and the most critical. We feel incompetent. We feel slow. We feel foolish. And most of us quit right there, before we ever get to the part where it starts to feel natural. But Kaufman mapped out what happens if you push through that initial wall. He found that with roughly 20 hours of focused, deliberate practice, broken down into just 45 minutes a day across a month, a person could move from complete beginner to surprisingly capable. Not mastery, not perfection, but capable, functional, genuinely good enough to build momentum. He tested it himself. He learned to play the ukulele. He learned to program. He learned yoga. Each time he committed to 20 hours and nothing more. And each time he arrived on the other side of that discomfort with a real skill in his hands. He did not wait for the perfect conditions. He did not wait until he had more time, more money, more confidence. He simply began. And he stayed in the discomfort long enough for the discomfort to transform into competence. The insight buried inside this story is one that very few people ever stop to examine. We have confused the ceiling of mastery with the floor of usefulness. When someone says it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill, we hear it as a reason not to start. But those 10,000 hours are not the entry point. They are the summit. And you do not need the summit to change your life. You need the first 20 hours. You need just enough capability to move, to act, to build. Think of learning like lighting a fire. The first moments are the hardest. The wood is cold. The friction feels pointless. Nothing seems to be happening. But underneath the surface, heat is building. Something is shifting. And the moment you reach the threshold, the fire does not slowly appear. It catches, and once it catches, it sustains itself. Most people never reach that threshold, not because the threshold is too far, but because they quit 1 hour before it arrives. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not as wide as your fear has made it. Appear. It is 20 hours wide. That is all. So here is what this means for your life, starting today. Pick one skill you have been postponing. Not the easiest one. The one that actually matters to you. The one you think about when you are being honest with yourself. Now break it down. Identify the core, fundamental actions within that skill that will give you 80% of the usefulness. Do not try to learn everything. Learn the pieces that move the needle first. Then commit to 20 hours. Write it down. 45 minutes a day. No skipping. No negotiating with yourself after day 3 when the novelty wears off. Expect it to feel uncomfortable. Expect to feel slow. Expect to want to quit. But understand, now, before you begin, that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is confirmation that you are exactly where you need to be. Growth does not feel like growth while it is happening. It feels like struggle. It feels like friction. And friction means movement. Track your hours, not your results. Not yet. Just your hours. Because in the beginning, your only job is to show up and stay in the discomfort long enough for your brain to reorganize around. The new skill. 20 hours. One skill. One decision. The question is not whether you have the talent. The question is whether you have 20 hours. And the willingness to be a beginner. Because here is the truth no one is saying loudly enough. The people who seem naturally gifted are not people who found it easy. They are people who stayed in the discomfort long enough to reach the other side. And on the other side of 20 hours, there is a version of you that knows something you do not know right now. A version of you that can do something you cannot yet do. That version of you is not waiting for the right moment. It is waiting for you to begin. 20 hours. That is all that stands between you and the life you keep saying you will build. Someday. Start tonight.